fine. Okay, so I'm not going to stand in front of the board here. I'm going to try and use this here. All right. So meiosis leads to variation. Okay, and variation is the cornerstone of evolution. Okay, and I'm going to take your normal vocabulary for natural selection, the mechanism of evolution proposed by Charles Darwin, and I'm just going to bring it into the A level, all right, using an example. Okay, so the example I'm going to use is the peppered moth, and you've seen it at GCSE. Biston betularia, that's probably pronounced it wrong, all right, but the simple concept goes, if you look at the table at the top there, right, that's a mark recapture, but in the early 1800s, the natural peppered moth was speckled, like the top colour, grey type colour. 50 years later, the only moth you found was black. Alright? Evolution had occurred. And I want to be able to describe that to you. And your aim is to be able to describe it back to me with a better vocabulary than you just did about the swordfish. Alright? So, I need you to bear with me. This example is the first time I've tried it. It might work, it might not, but I'm going to try and explain the thing. First of all, I need you to be aware that there are a number of alleles in the gene pool. What I should have really described this as, I'm going to do it now, is that there is slight variation in the gene pool. So I'm going to make this moth less white than the others. It probably hasn't come out very well. Okay? But there is variation of alleles, and it's not genes we say anymore, it's alleles. There is a variation of alleles in the gene pool. Okay? Now, something happened, and this, I'm trying to show you here the situation in the forests of Manchester. It's actually not the forests, it's in the Manchester. This work was done in Manchester. In 1848, the air in Manchester was reasonably clean. Okay? And that meant that the trees, which is what this were quite nice places for the speckled moths to reside and not get eaten. In other words, the birds that were eating the moths couldn't see them due to the camouflage nature, which I'm trying to represent there. Alright? Do you agree? Do you see that? Do you agree with that? Okay. But the Industrial Revolution then began, and the city of Manchester was the heart of the Industrial Revolution, and therefore, between that time, I am trying to demonstrate that the actual colour, due to the soot coating on the trees, changed. So there's an environmental change. Do you get that? Right. Then what happens is, during this period, and I'm going to try and move us on several generations, during this period, a mutation occurred. And here is our mutated moth. Now, that mutation provided an advantageous allele. Now, that's new phrases. That provided an advantageous allele. Now, it was advantageous because as the Industrial Revolution increased, the soot covering on the trees increased, and it meant that that allele provided an increased level of camouflage due to the change in environment. Can you see that by the diagram? Okay, now what this means is there is an increased reproductive success for the organism that possesses the advantageous allele. My words have really wrapped up. Can you get that? My vocabulary's changed. Now, that means that it will almost survive, outcompete the disadvantageous allele, in this case the white or speckled colour, and by reproducing, it's found a mate of a similar mutation. We are now going to reduce the frequency of the speckled allele, the disadvantageous allele, because the speckled moths get eaten. They have decreased reproductive success. Our dark moths reproduce. And over many generations, due to the changing environmental conditions, we have, and a final phrase, an increased frequency of advantageous alleles in the gene pool. Alright? And that is natural selection. With new words. Or improved words. Okay? So the key words and the key concepts are that there is a gene pool. And that in the gene pool there is variation. There are many different alleles for a given characteristic. In this case, colour. Something, and we've talked about this, there could be base mutations or chromosomal mutations, but there is a mutation. Normally that mutation is non-advantageous, but in this instance, the mutation provided an advantageous allele. This advantageous allele led to an increase in reproductive success. Therefore, over many generations, due to the fact that these dark moths with the advantageous alleles were reproducing because they outcompeted the speckled moths, there was an increased frequency of the advantageous allele in the gene pool. Alright? Good.